The movie begins on what appears to be a perfectly serene, beautiful day deep within the untamed wilderness. Two cheerful hikers are trekking through the dense sunlit forest. One holds a GPS device to navigate the winding trails, while the other holds a camera, happily snapping photographs of the breathtaking natural scenery. They chat casually, completely unaware that they have wandered into a nightmare. Without a single warning, the deafening crack of a gunshot echoes through the trees. A high-caliber sniper bullet rips straight through the camera lens, striking the photographer directly in the head. He collapses instantly, dead before he hits the dirt. Paralyzed by sheer terror, the second hiker drops the GPS device and sprints blindly into the dense woods, running for his life. Back at the site of the shooting, a cold, calculated killer steps out from the camouflage of the trees. He slowly approaches the dying hiker who was shot. In a twisted, dark ritual, the killer kneels beside his victim, whispering a quiet prayer for his final journey into the afterlife. As soon as the prayer ends, he ruthlessly finishes the hiker off with a sharp hunting blade. Meanwhile, another member of this deranged hunting party easily chases down the fleeing hiker and brutally murders him in the brush. The tone is set. These woods are a slaughterhouse. Following this horrific display of violence, the story shifts to a young woman named Catherine, who goes by the nickname Kat. Kat is currently living her own personal nightmare. Desperate to escape the clutches of her violently abusive boyfriend, she decides to disappear off the grid by joining a wilderness expedition group. Her caring brother drives her to the drop-off point. He gives her a heavy backpack filled with essential supplies, offers her a few final words of protective advice, and wishes her luck before driving away. Gathering her courage, Kat hikes alone toward the expedition base camp. Upon arriving, she meets Jean, the tough, no-nonsense leader and coordinator of the wilderness retreat. Jean is incredibly strict, intensely focused on the schedule, and surprisingly unwelcoming. After briefly questioning Kat's reasons for joining the trip, Jean briskly walks her through the camp to introduce her to the rest of the all-female group. First, Kat is introduced to Shay. Then, she meets April and Madison, who are already bickering and fighting over the kitchen duties and supplies. Next, Jean leads Kat to Ren, a highly erratic, strange girl who seems completely detached from reality. Jean immediately reprimands Ren for breaking the strict camp rules by bringing a knife, firmly ordering her not to take it on the trail. Finally, Jean attempts to introduce Kat to Joy, a disciplined former soldier. However, Joy interrupts the introduction, pulling Jean aside into a private room to furiously complain that Ren had been rummaging through her personal belongings, wanting to keep the peace. Jean quickly finishes the introductions and announces that the entire group has exactly 5 minutes to freshen up and pack their gear before the journey begins. The women scramble to get ready. In the privacy of the bathroom, Kat splashes cold water on her face. As she adjusts her shirt, she looks in the mirror, revealing deep, dark, painful bruises wrapped around her ribs, the lingering physical evidence of her abusive boyfriend. Taking a deep breath, she covers the bruises and joins the group. The women pile into a transport van. As they drive toward the starting point of the hiking trail, Kat quietly writes her thoughts down in a personal journal. When the van finally stops at the edge of the deep forest, Jean gathers the women and delivers a strong motivational speech to prepare them for the grueling physical journey ahead. The van drivers say goodbye, promising to drive around the mountain and meet them at the final extraction point. The women march into the dense, silent woods. They are completely cut off from the modern world. No campfires allowed, no Wi-Fi, no cell phone service, and absolutely no other people for miles. Early into the hike, the erratic Ren sneaks away to swallow a handful of illicit drugs she smuggled in. Meanwhile, the former soldier Joy is scanning the environment. Near the base of a large tree, she spots an abandoned bullet casing. She picks it up, showing it to Ren, and explaining the specific caliber of the ammunition. Despite this glaring red flag, the group treats it like a normal piece of forest debris. They even walk right past a prominent warning sign planted in the dirt, completely oblivious to the terrifying danger silently waiting for them. While the women hike, the van driver is making his way toward the final destination. Suddenly, he is forced to hit the brakes. A strange car is parked horizontally, completely blocking the narrow dirt road. The driver steps out of his van, calling out to see if anyone needs help. Hearing no response, he leans forward to peer into the empty cabin of the blocking vehicle. Without warning, a man steps out from the blind spot behind him, wraps a thick garrote wire around the driver's neck, and violently strangles him to death. This brutal killer is part of a highly organized group of psychotic murderers led by a man named Ted. His twisted followers include the Strangler Zeke, who is also their elite sniper, along with Zeb and Wilson. They are not hunting animals. They actively hunt human beings for sport, completely unaware that their driver is dead and a hunting party is tracking them. Gene's group sets up their tents as night falls. They sit together, sharing personal stories, bonding, peacefully resting under the stars. The next morning, Ted's psychotic hunting party prepares for their deadly game. Following their twisted traditions, they gather to pray before the hunt. They then release their ultimate tracking tool, a deranged feral man they treat like a bloodhound, commonly referred to as the human dog, with their beast unleashed. The killers march into the forest. Meanwhile, the women continue their carefree hike. They stumble upon an old, abandoned cabin hidden deep in the trees, but decide not to explore it, pushing forward. As they attempt to cross a steep, rocky ravine, disaster strikes. Gene loses her footing on the loose dirt, slipping and tumbling hard down the steep incline. She screams in agony as her arm is violently dislocated from its socket. Kat, relying on her past training as a paramedic, immediately steps up. She skillfully pops Gene's arm back into place and secures it tightly with a makeshift sling. Because their leader is severely injured, the group is forced to halt their progress. They set up a temporary camp near an old, rotting warehouse to let Gene rest. As the women try to relax, Kat approaches the drug-addicted Ren, having noticed her erratic behavior. Kat quietly asks Ren for a pill, only to discover how incredibly strong the drugs are. Out of genuine concern, Kat urges Ren to quit. But Ren brushes her off and walks away, needing to relieve herself. Joy separates from the group and walks alone into the dense brush. As she finishes, she spots something horrifying on the ground. The GPS device from the murdered hiker at the beginning of the movie. It is covered in dried blood, and the battery is completely dead. Suddenly, she hears a rustling in the bushes. Joy turns and tries to sprint away, but the feral human dog leaps from the shadows, tackling her to the dirt. Relying on her military training, Joy fiercely fights back, throwing punches and trying to gain the upper hand. But the feral man's raw, animalistic strength is too much. He pins her down and, using his bare hands, brutally rips her throat open. As Joy bleeds to death, the human dog snatches her military dog tags as a grotesque trophy. The rest of the hunting party silently surrounds the women's camp. Positioning himself perfectly, Zeke looks through the scope of his high-powered sniper rifle. He targets the injured leader. A gunshot shatters the silence, and Gene is struck instantly. Pure, unadulterated chaos erupts. The deafening sound of gunfire echoes from the trees as the terrified women scramble in all directions. In the sheer panic to survive, they abandon the dying Gene and sprint blindly into the woods, satisfied with his sniper fire. One of the hunters moves in on foot. One of the killers, entirely unable to control his bloodlust, breaks formation and chases after Madison, tackling her to the ground and preparing to kill her. But before he can strike, Shay charges forward with a massive, heavy rock.